The difference between men and women is significant on dating apps. Promising endless choices and instant gratification, millions of people use dating apps to find a romantic partner, but most of them are just like beauty contests where the good-looking people get the matches and the decent ones get dumped. Dating apps can be a blow to the average guy's self-esteem, and sometimes even contribute to feelings of anxiety and depression. It can be toxic, and you may think you deserve something better. We used to meet potential mates at work, at school, through friends, and out in the world. Not anymore. Whether we look for long-term relationships or a one-time fling, millions of people use dating apps to find a potential romantic partner. Almost 40% of heterosexual couples reported finding their partner online during a study from Stanford University. However, the experience of using dating apps can be very different for men and women. Men often seem unable to get matches, and many women complain about intrusive behavior from men. A study out of the University of North Texas found that male Tinder users reported lower levels of self-worth than those who weren't dating on the app. But why is online dating so challenging, particularly for men? Well, in this video, we'll expose the truth about dating apps and the 6 reasons why the future doesn't look very good for most men. Most platforms are a black box showing a skewed version of the actual dating landscape. Gaining a good understanding of the dynamics within these platforms is not easy, but we have thoroughly analyzed all available information to help you understand the fundamental drivers of how dating online works. First of all, there are fewer women than men on dating apps. Despite investing considerable effort into crafting an appealing profile, why is it so difficult for the average Joe to get matches? To find an answer to that question, let's look at the numbers on dating apps. The 2 biggest platforms, Tinder and Bumble, have significantly more male than female users. On Tinder, there is only 1 woman for every 3 men. Bumble is a little bit more balanced, with approximately 38% women. Still, on average, we only have about a woman for every 2 men on big dating apps. Historically, men have been expected to take on a more active role in pursuing romantic relationships, which may contribute to higher numbers of men on dating apps. Dating apps may also unintentionally cater more towards male users because their development and design are influenced by the male-dominated tech industry. And, as opposed to most men, attractive women are arguably more likely to be approached in real-life environments, making online dating redundant to many of them. To understand the impact of this unequal gender distribution, let's visualize a simplified scenario where the same number of men and women use a dating app. We'll start adding more realistic variables as we go. Let's assume that 1,000 people are using the app and the number of men and women is equally distributed. That means there are 500 men and 500 women. Let's also assume that the profiles are treated equally by the algorithm and the average like rate is of 25%. That means every man and woman like 1 out of 4 profiles they see, or in other words, everyone's profile has a 25% chance of getting liked. To make it more realistic, the total number of swipes per day is limited to 100. In that case, we would see an equal distribution of 25 likes and 6 matches per day. So why is this any different from what happens in real dating apps? Because as mentioned before, there are usually about 2 men for every woman on the big dating apps. In our scenario, that would add up to 667 men for every 333 women. Considering this more realistic gender ratio, can you guess how many likes and matches users would get? Based on the disproportionate number of men on the apps, the results start to become more unbalanced. Let's see. All variables stay the same except the new 2-to-1 gender ratio. Doing the math, it turns out that the differences are pretty big. The number of likes received by men decrease by half, and the number of likes received by women doubles. That means women receive an average of 50 likes and men only 12. Considering all women still like 1 out of 4 men they see, we would expect them to receive approximately 12 matches. However, in this case, the woman only gets 6 matches because so many men are in the queue now, and she doesn't get to see all the profiles that have liked her. Remember, we said that each user can only manage to swipe through 100 profiles per day. So in theory, the woman could have seen the 50 male profiles that liked her, but she only saw half the men that gave her a like, and that's because of reason number 2. Users don't see all likes. Users wouldn't stick around for very long if they had immediate access to all the profiles that liked them. The big dating platforms don't primarily design their apps to help people find a significant other, but to keep them engaged and to make them pay for premium services as long as possible. That's why dating apps apply sophisticated strategies to keep users engaged, rather than solely relying on revealing direct matches. You've probably come across some of these engagement and retention methods, such as intermittent rewards, the scarcity principle, and the fear of missing out. Dating apps often foster a sense of FOMO, presenting the user with numerous potential matches that they could miss out on without the premium services. By restricting the number of likes or swipes in the free version, apps can make the unlimited likes of premium version seem more appealing, creating a sense of urgency and desire for the premium offerings. Dating apps also use sporadic matches or messages in irregular intervals to keep the user coming back in hopes of more. Right after you join or rejoin after a break, some apps even inflate matches to re-engage users, for example through surplus visibility. But even with all the premium features enabled, the odds are against men because of reason number 3. Women get overwhelmed. Due to the gender imbalance, women usually don't see all profiles of the users that have liked them, but almost every profile they like is an instant match. Because of all the men lining up, their inbox quickly fills up with messages leading to mixed feelings about all the attention they receive. On one hand, they're flattered, but on the other hand, they start feeling a little bit overwhelmed. As a result, women generally become pickier and choose more carefully who they give likes to. Women also tend to be more cautious about using dating apps due to safety concerns related to unwanted advances and the intrusive behavior of men. And on top of that, some women only seek validation. A 2018 study reveals that many women are using dating apps to confirm their attractiveness rather than to find a partner. The research indicates that for women, the main motivation in using dating apps was self-affirmation, in other words, to feel good, rather than seeking sex or a committed relationship. And this leads us to reason number 5. Men give more likes. Repeated unsuccessful attempts at matching can take a toll on a man's confidence. Since they don't often get a lot of likes and matches, they know they can't afford to be too picky. That's why they often lower their standards and start giving out more likes to increase their chances of getting matches. While women face increased objectification or unwanted attention, men often feel pressured to be more generous with their likes. Data released by swipestats.io illustrate the enormous difference. While men like more than half of the female profiles they see, women discard 95% of all men they see on Tinder. Yes, you heard that right. Women only like about 5% of all profiles they see. A recent video that I tagged in the description graphically summarizes the implication of this female choosiness in a simulation. It starts with an equal user distribution and becomes more imbalanced when adding a more realistic gender ratio. As demonstrated before, with 2 men on every woman, the panorama changes significantly. Women get 50 likes, 4 times more than men. The matches women receive are only double because of the assumed daily swiping limit. Now, let's apply a more realistic like rate. Instead of 5 and 52% from the SwipeStats research, we'll use more conservative figures that have been released in a New York Times article. Here, women are reported to like 14% of all men. For men, the comparable number is 46%. When taking these estimated like rates of 14 and 46% into consideration, the gender gap becomes even bigger. Now, women get 92 likes and men only 7. The number of matches stays almost the same. Now that doesn't sound too bad in terms of matches. However, for most men, things are more complicated than that. How come? Because the majority of women only like a small number of men's profiles, which leads us to number 6. Attractiveness matters. A small share of users get a big chunk of the likes. In other words, the winner takes all, almost at least. On Hinge, the top 10% of men receive nearly 60% of all the likes. For women, the comparable figure is 45%. Dating apps sort potential partners into a tiny group of alpha males that get most of the likes, and a huge group of not-so-fortunate men who compete for the leftover women. On Tinder, that means the bottom 80% of male users, according to their attractiveness based on the likes received, compete for the bottom 22% of women. That is a huge imbalance. Picture this. The Gini index is a common measure of nations' income inequality. Applying the same coefficient to women's likes distribution on Tinder, the inequality is devastating for men. If Tinder were a country, it would be among the most unequal in the world, worse than Venezuela and almost as bad as South Africa. What is driving this division? As with other technologies, dating apps don't change human nature. They focus it and scale our instincts. Regardless of how we meet potential matches, we sort them in large part based on looks, and particularly women, on earning potential. Algorithms magnify that effect. Now, let's see how that manifests itself in our simulation. Since most women like a small number of profiles, the average numbers in the simulation are not representative anymore. Certain men get exponentially more likes than others, and to illustrate that, some sort of attractiveness score needs to be added to the equation. A new function is implemented that reflects the fact that the top users get exponentially more likes and the bottom users almost don't get any. At first sight, there's no big difference. In fact, the average numbers are untouched. However, now the distribution is distorted due to the attractive users who get a big chunk of the likes. To accurately describe the experience of the average user, a new metric needs to be added: the median. The median shows how many matches and likes the average user gets. Only now can we see that the average man just gets 1 like and no matches. The median for women doesn't vary much. Looking at the average number of likes, the 10% alpha users on top of the dating app food chain get 37 likes. However, factoring in the attractiveness score, the average male user only receives between 0 and 1 like. If we look at the matches, something curious happens. Although the top percent of men get fewer likes than the top percent of women, they actually have more matches. Well, that's because they're not as picky as women. Looking at these numbers, an average man would need to swipe right about 200 times to get a match. No wonder so many men quickly get fed up with dating apps. It may or may not describe your experience, and vastly depends on your attractiveness score and real-life metrics that can vary depending on the app and location that you're using.